Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Trade Talk. I'm your host, Niko. This is episode 20, and thank you for checking back in with me. If this is your first time listening to the show, essentially, week to week, I'll read a bunch of different collected edition comics that have come out, and I come here and I kind of review them. I give you a little overview of how much I enjoyed the book, if it's worth picking up, in my opinion. And, there is some spoilers involved, so I try to keep some big things I feel that we don't need to discuss that might ruin the book for you out of the conversation. I kind of just use my best judgment when it comes to that. All right, anyways, without further ado here, let's get into it. First up, I got 7 different books here today. This is a good past week for me for reading, so I figured, what the hell, let's try to talk about all of them. I'm going to try to spend not too much time on any individual thing I'm talking about here. Maybe a little bit longer on the things I really, really enjoyed. But anyways, yeah, so first up, we got the Realm Vol.3. This is written by Seth N. Peck and Jeremy Haun, with art by Jeremy Haun, and with Nick Filardi and Thomas Moyer. I believe that's with colorists. Yeah, and lettering. There you go. So they color and letter the book. This is more of a fantasy-based type book. I know when it first came out, a lot of people were kind of comparing it to, they even came out with the first trade. I think there was a special edition that made it look like a Dungeons and Dragons type box, like the actual design of it. So I know that a lot of people were comparing it to that kind of stuff. I mean, there's magic, and there's orcs, and there's warriors, and there's, I guess what you could call, barbarians and stuff. I've never really played Dungeons and Dragons, but if you're looking for a more fantasy-based story, definitely look no further. The Realm is a book you may be interested in. It's basically just about a group of people, I guess travelers, that we're following through this book as they go through this world. Basically on a quest, like adventuring, and there's a group of people that are being protected by another group here, and one of the main characters looks like Michonne. If you'll have to excuse me, I don't know a lot of the main characters by name, just kind of by how they look, and maybe more so their characteristics. I don't think that's a fault of the book itself. Just I read a lot of things, and this trade, the third trade in, they don't come in all so often. So I do enjoy the book, though. I will say that in this Volume 3, there's 5 issues collected here. This collect issue 11 to 15, $16.99 US retail price. The last issue in this issue 15 was a completely wordless comic, except for basically a guy saying fuck at the end, at the last panel of the book, because some shit goes down with. Just great job on Jeremy Haun's part with the art. If you've ever seen his art, he's done a bunch of stuff with DC that you may have been familiar with over the years. Some Batman stuff, probably most notably. He did the Beauty for Image Comics. He drew, I think, the first couple of arcs with that, and I think he's still writing it. I think that's still going on. He has a very fine line kind of art style, I think, that also lends itself very well to horror aspects, as well as even in this fantasy type book, there's a lot of horrific kind of things going on. Interesting character designs of people they encounter along the way. I will say it definitely worth checking out. 3 volumes in, I'm still keeping with it. I thought this volume was a little underwhelming at times, just because I expected some more bigger things to kind of happen. I don't think there was much story progression with our characters and their travels in this one, but every other issue felt like they were dealing with a different problem and with a different set of characters. So I think he's doing a good job of bouncing around and touching on everything at this point. It didn't feel like there was much. They've gotten much further in their journey, but they're running into a bunch of issues. So yeah, so it's good. I like it. Definitely worth checking out if any of that sounds good to you. Next up, we have Redneck Vol.4. Lone Star, this one's called, and this is the creator-owned series through Image Comics, written by Donny Cates, art by Lisandro Esteran. I gotta say, I really love this book. I think that Donny Cates, as much as enjoyable stuff that he's done over at Marvel so far, and where he's really been making a name for himself, I still have preferred a lot of the creator-owned things he's written through Image and Dark Horse, and like I said, Aftershock, when I talked about Baby Teeth a couple weeks ago. This being one of those things, and it's basically about a bunch of vampires in the South and their family lineage, and kind of how they're all connected, and how some of them are family, but not really family. But they may have bitten one another from back in the day, but their actual family goes all the way back to the beginning of vampires. So but they're not a family that people love in the town. They cause a lot of shit. They get into a lot of trouble, even though they're it's one of those situations where most of the time they're trying to get out of it. And just every time these volumes come out, I just devour them. I love this story so much. And again, it feels like I know there was a lot of vampire books kind of out there. You got American Vampire amongst other things, and for a time there, it felt like there was too many books maybe with vampires in them, or too many of these weird supernatural weird takes of books over at Image Comics. And this might get kind of lost in the shuffle as a result of that, though. But if you're a fan of Donny Cates' writing, or even just a different take on vampires, and because it's more of I would say it's more of almost like a Western or something. It's them in the South. It's them, talking and dealing with a bunch of different people there. There's really interesting characters. There's an interesting kind of family relationship going on in here with all of these vampires that are part of this family. And yeah, there's just twists and turns and big surprises, and the art is fantastic. I've never seen this artist before this book. Really interesting style. Loose and cartoony, and probably, I'm guessing, even by I don't know by the name, to be honest, but I would say maybe a European kind of art sensibility or something. Definitely somebody from another country. So yeah, in this volume, not to get it too much into it if you've never read this book before, but one of their family members seemed to have been almost killed at the end of the last volume, and in this one they took great strides in being able to bring him back to life, or at least out of the state that he currently is in, because like I said, he didn't die exactly. I mean, they're undead anyways, being vampires, but in doing so, they meet up with a new group of characters and kind of a new territory, and add kind of more to the mythos of vampires and how they work in this world. And it's kind of they kind of run into more of Day of the Dead type, Spanish kind of vampires or something, people that believe more in magic and rituals and this kind of shit. So in this crazy weird outlaw town of people that are, I guess, on the run outside of whatever law exists for vampires in their world. So yeah, really, really interesting stuff going on in this. Just another fantastic volume in this series. So Redneck, if you've never checked it out, definitely worth checking out. Like I said, even if you're not into the whole vampire thing, or if you're over that, but you're a fan of Donny Cates, I think it's definitely worth checking out, or just really great stories. All right, next up we got Coda Vol.3. This is the last volume. This is from Boom Studios. It's written by Simon Spurrier, art by Mateus Bergera, who's just a fucking beast. And I mean, if they end up doing a hardcover that collects all three of these volumes, which I'm sure they will, and it's oversized with this guy's art, I might have to fucking double dip and pick that up instead of these paperbacks, because I mean, his art looks great in these, don't get me wrong, but I'm sure something even on a larger scale would do it much more justice. This was a great book. Talk about, another high fantasy based title. I mean, I don't even like everything by Simon Spurrier. He's kind of hit or miss with me. But I had heard good things about this, so I picked up the first volume. This collects, I think, issues 9 to 12, it looks like. This is a $14.99 U.S. retail volume. All of them, I think, are about the same. They only collect 4 issues each, so they're quick reads. But, yeah, I mean, the story's pretty much ended in this volume. I'm not going to spoil that for you guys, but this just basically continues at its core. It's like almost like a love story. Like, it's a tale about, I guess he's like an elf and some sort of ogre or that are like in love with one another, and in this world where magic exists, and yeah, that's all I'll say about it. But it's like I said, it's a really good fantasy story, really well written, fantastic art. And yeah, that is a theme that kind of goes throughout this. It's one of those situations where it's two people that are struggling to be with one another that may not be right for each other, but then as time goes on, they learn to kind of continue to fall back in love with each other after they've kind of broken each other's hearts at different points in the story, and ended up, wanting to be together in the end. And a bunch of shit happens to both of them on either side of things in this world, and either of their situations and current, place in life. So, really good book, Coda. Yeah, try out the first volume. I mean, like I said, it's like $15 retail a volume. If you can get the first volume for even cheaper, definitely jump on and give it a whirl here. And the art, the art's so good. So next up, we got Wonder Twins Volume 1. This is from the Wonder Comics imprint. Like I said, the Brian Bendis kind of all ages imprint through DC Comics. That there's other books that, like Naomi, which I just talked about the last week, it comes out of Young Justice, and Dal H for Hero. So I've kind of been trying all these out. A lot of them have seemed fun. This was one that's not written by Bendis. This is written by Mark Russell, who I've talked about on the show before. The genius behind things like the Flintstones series that he did through DC Comics. And some of you may be like, what? Flintstones series? But I think that it was not what you would expect from a Flintstones series. And ever since then, that book, I followed everything Mark Russell has kind of done, because Mark Russell has this great voice in comics, and he's not he doesn't traditionally come from comics. He's not like a comic guy. I think he wrote prose before this, but he's got almost like does these scathing looks and very smart social commentary on the world and things around him, and maybe like on politics, or just like on characters. He brings just a different flavor of something to comics, and big two comics for that matter, no matter what he's writing. It's just very interesting. I'm really, really a big fan of his writing, and Wonder Twins is really fun. Stephen Byrne is the artist on this, I must say, who's also really great. Very great, clean line, cartoony style. I've seen his stuff in other books before. I've seen his stuff online and post a lot of stuff. He's almost like he's like an animator, almost like kind of like art style. Very good. And I don't really know too much about the Wonder Twins, but in this, it's about how Superman basically brings them around because he promised their parents, them being from space, maybe like knowing Superman, that he would, bring them to Earth and kind of and protect them and look over them, but now they're just kind of there, and he's trying to find things for them to do, and they're trying to lead everyday lives, and they're kind of getting mixed up in some of the more like cornier fucking bad guys that are like below the Justice League's pay grade, so to say. That like you can't really bother with a lot of these guys, although like it's basically like Lex Luthor's like place that he kicks all the bad guys to that he thinks are shit and he doesn't want to deal with. It's like almost like a shitty Injustice League. so they kind of got mixed up with those guys, and the Wonder Twins, when they touch each other's rings or whatever, they fist bump, the male, he can only turn into water basically, and the other person can like turn into different like I guess like animals or like things around them. I think that's what she can basically do. Yeah, like different animals she mostly turns into, but they're weird powers that don't really work well with one another. And they can be good depending on the situation. But like, there's one scene where he turns into water and she turns into a shark, and basically he helps like wave her around with the water and like propel the shark against people and make the bad guys run off. But again, even though it's an all ages comic and definitely can be and reads like one, it's more of like about the inside kind of jokes, like the realize that it's hard to explain. It's just it's something about his writing, and it's very funny. It's a very funny fucking book, but it's one of those things where it's almost too smart for its own good. And not to say that it's like you will not understand the plot or you won't follow the story. It has nothing to do with that. It's very basic, but it's a lot of the observations and the jokes themselves that are made in this, without getting too much into it, all the different plot lines that I really stepped away and enjoyed. And if you're a Mark Russell fan already and know that kind of stuff he does, you'll definitely find something funny in this and fun to enjoy. And I'm looking forward to the next volume. This is going to be like a 12-issue series all said and done. So this is the first of 2 paperback volumes that are going to collect it. And it's definitely different from anything else I've read from the Wonder Comics in print at this point, because that was all Bendis stuff. And like I said, Mark Russell, one of the better, new, interesting writers and voices in comics today. And having said that, moving on to the next book here, it's Red Sonja Vol.1, Scorched Earth. This is also written by Mark Russell, art by a few different artists. I think Mirko Kolak is the main one here, along with Bob Q and Robert Carey and Katie O'Mara. And if I was going to say one complaint, like Dynamite, that is a problem occasionally with Dynamite, is and I will say it seems they've been trying to take great strides over the last year or two to bring some more interesting creators, including artists, to their books and to put out good stuff. And they've had some good books, even with like a lot of their properties that they own. Licensed property type stuff. I mean, again, I mostly picked this up for the fact that Mark Russell wrote it. But at its core, this is just, I mean, I haven't read much Red Sonja stories, but this felt very much like what you would expect from a Red Sonja story. I mean, I'm a big Conan fan. So I figured, a chick barbarian kind of thing, like basically like a female Conan, but different still in a way, is something I would be interested in. With Mark Russell writing it, I thought it was really interesting. But yeah, the art was inconsistent throughout this volume. That was what I was trying to get at earlier. I think that's the one bad thing about this. And not while any of the artists were really bad per se. Mirko Kolak was great. I mean, I'm a big fan of Bob Q's art style as well. They had a lot of Amanda Connor's covers for every issue in between each chapter break in this. You had even in the back, you get like a shitload of different covers from different artists that they've included. There's like 40 or 50 fucking pages of covers here that made the trade seem a lot fatter than it actually was. Because this collects the first 6 issues, plus a little one-shot issue of some backstory, I guess, that adds to the main story that they also printed. So this was good. I liked this. Like I said, I mean, if you're a fan of Conan, or you like these kind of things told in this time, or barbarian stories, or just or if you're a fan of Red Sonja, definitely worth checking out, because this felt like he kind of still, it felt like a Mark Russell book, but not as much of a Mark Russell book in terms of his voice as some of the other things. Even like Wonder Twins that I just spoke about felt more like a Mark Russell book. This is kind of more true, it feels like, to the character, but it also has some kind of interesting looks at politics in their time and society and kings and how they look down on people. And basically this king is trying to take over Red Sonja's territory, and she's, I guess, the queen of that area now, and he's basically telling her to bow down and let them come through and take over. And like his right-hand man is like, listen, like, we don't even need their area. They have a shit area. They barely have anything. These people are poor. Why do you need to take this over? Because and the guy's like, he's not even a king, actually. He's more of like a conqueror type person. He's like, oh, it's because that's what we do. Like, we conquer. Like, we need to take over this area. Like, fuck them. They should just bow down. And Red Sonja isn't ready to let that happen. So it's pretty interesting. So it's kind of got like a lot of things about war tactics and like people in how to read people and like the different types of people like that exist, and you know, what's right and what's wrong, and a lot of morality type story type of beats. So yeah, really good. Definitely check it out. I think it retails for $19.99 volume. Yeah, $19.99. But like I said, it's a big fat paperback. It's got like the 7 issues in here, 1 to 6, plus a little one-shot story they did, as well as a whole cover gallery in here, which is a lot of really nice covers, especially if you're into some more of the cheesecakey art, because Sonja has it in spades for sure. Next up, we got Invisible Kingdom. This is volume 1, written by G. Willow Wilson, art by Christian Ward. This is fantastic. I had heard a lot of good things about this. This is through the Berger Books imprint, through Dark Horse Comics. Karen Berger, of course, being one of the main editors, basically the person in charge over at Vertigo Comics for forever, just before it kind of closed its doors. She had left and then started working over at Dark Horse with this Berger Books imprint, and has been bringing a lot of interesting different creators' books out over there, and definitely gives you that feel of like Vertigo is still kind of alive, you know, through her, because the reason, you know, she's the big person behind a lot of your favorite books that came out from Vertigo back in the day, like that she approved and people had pitched her ideas. You know, I can go on and on about them, but you know, I'm sure she had like a big hand in things like, you know, like Sandman and Transmetropolitan and just like so much. Anyways, without going too much into all that, this is great. I mean, G. Willow Wilson's a great writer, and I liked her Ms. Marvel stuff. I've read a couple other things by her as well. But her creator-owned stuff I haven't really connected all that much with that I've read. The couple things I have read. She had a book called Air through Vertigo Comics, so she herself has probably worked with her over there at Vertigo. That was okay. And then I read something else by her that was all right as well. But this one was really cool. This is basically about space nuns. Nuns in space. Like, it's basically about a group of people that believe in this sort of religion or faith. You know, this is in the future. It's a fantasy book. It's in space. It takes part in space, and it's a woman who basically becomes a nun and gives herself over to this group and really believes in them. And then, you know, when she's there and she's kind of working along with them, being the new nun and all, she finds that maybe not everything's on the level that's going on over there. Meanwhile, you got like another group of characters in this that are like your, you know, almost like, I wouldn't say, they're not hitmen, like, you know, like space junkers kind of thing. They're like, there's a group of people that fly around and take on different jobs, and they're basically like your Guardians of the Galaxy or your Han and you know, Chewie, kind of like, just like a, you know, this, just people that run jobs that kind of go through space, that cross paths with her and feel similarly about the religion that she's blindly kind of following now, and kind of finding that maybe it's not all it's cracked up to be, and that those people are actually in cahoots with the government that these other people are against, and they're against their own government. So it's a lot of kind of conversation about government and the church, and how the church and the government that's also corrupt are in cahoots with one another, and how both these different characters came from different places in the story but came together towards the end of this first volume, and basically now have all teamed up to kind of, for better or for worse, kind of you know, take down like these corrupt people in this society that they live in through space. So in space. So, and that's what the Invisible Kingdom is called. I think it's the place of like where they all congregate these people at like some structure, and part of the religion that she kind of, like our main character, the nun that we kind of see her get into. So it is a little harder for me to describe, and the Christian Ward's art is really something else. I mean, if you've seen his work on Black Bolt or Odyssey with Matt Fraction, which I wasn't that much of a fan of, but it's I like his artwork. Yeah, it's really something else. It's, again, hard to describe. I guess if I had to compare him to anybody, it would be kind of like Phil Noto, if you're familiar with his work. It's definitely got a little Phil Noto in it. And the colors are vibrant, and the story is good. The dialogue was enjoyable, and if it didn't come off that clear to you with what this book was, just because I'm having a little trouble I'm finding describing it, but although I can't speak more highly on it because I really, really enjoyed this first volume and looking forward to the second one. It basically says, follow the prophet or the prophet, and that's Profit for the second one, and the other one's prophet, Prophet. The little blurb on the back of the book here. In a distant galaxy, two women discover an inconceivable conspiracy between the world's most dominant religion and an all-powerful mega corporation. Suddenly, their prey in a desperate interstellar chase, they face with a life-or-death decision, reveal the truth, or risk plunging their worlds into anarchy. So there you go. That's kind of I wasn't so far off by describing it, but that did a much better job, I find, in a little blurb, and that's what they're there for, folks. All right, and last off, but not least, probably my favorite thing I read out of these stack of books, and as you can tell, I've enjoyed every single one of them to some degree. Little Bird. Go out and buy this as soon as possible, everybody. This is so fucking good. This is a 6-issue, I guess, miniseries, but they've left it. It feels like they could continue this story if they wanted to, maybe, possibly. It does say book 1 on it, so maybe there was plans to do more. Originally, there wasn't even plans to collect it for some reason, I was told. First, I heard somewhere that the writer had mentioned that this may never be collected, and I didn't pick up the issues initially, and I was like, oh, I hope they fucking collect it, because I really want to read this. This is through Image Comics. It's a $30 U.S. retail price on the hardcover. It's a nice hardcover, not oversized, but a little bit bigger than probably your standard fare, but not to the point where it's omnibus size, I would say. Actually, it is. I just went and put it up against one of my omnibuses on the shelf. Yeah, it's omnibus size, so it is a little oversized. I'm just trying to look. I think it collects the first 6 issues of this series. 1 to 5. It's 5 issues. Here's the thing with this book, though. The art is by Ian Bertram. This is written by Darcy Van Poelgeest and Matt Hollingsworth in colors, who's a great colorist. But the art is so fucking good in this book, and such a weird, different fucking art style. Today, I've seen Ian Bertram's work before. He did another book called House of Penance through Dark Horse Comics, which is about what the fuck's that house called? It's that house in the States, the Winchester house, where the guy who made all the Winchester guns, and apparently it's supposedly haunted, and I believe it was even a movie or something that came out, and it may have been on Netflix a little while ago, but there's a movie they did of it. Anyways, his art is so fucking out there and weird, and I mean, if I had to compare it to anybody, which is so hard, I would say in terms of the detail that he puts in and the little kind of lines he draws all over the characters, it's very reminiscent of Frank Quietly, who I think's fucking amazing too. So, I would say, all his little pencil ticks that he kind of does to kind of add maybe more detail or depth or whatever. I'm not an artist, so I'm not, but I do try to describe the art to you. But I don't know why he does it, other than the painstakingly much more detail he puts into every panel that he does. I mean, I'm just flipping through the book right now. It's just amazing. As you can hear in my voice, I'm flabbergasted by this guy's style. He's so different from anybody kind of doing work today in traditional comics, and I mean, this is a creator-owned series. I mean, he did some stuff, I think, of the Batman Eternal as well, when that series was going on, the yearly one where they had an issue come out every week. So they brought him into the fray, and he did some Batman stuff, and I'm sure he looked wildly out of place on a Batman book. But thank God for them trying to do things like that sometimes and letting guys, new interesting voices come in, because this Little Bird, oh man, it's like a post-apocalyptic tale that takes place. It's actually in Canada, and man, and yeah, there's this person called Little Bird. She's a younger girl who was brought up in this society, and it's her trying to make her way through this world and find people to kind of help them overthrow the bad guys in this that are chasing them down throughout. And I guess they killed their family, and there's all these different type of warriors in it, and all these type of different ways that they live by, and them trying to find salvation. And there's only certain spots in the world that are safe right now, like a safe haven. And And it's about her basically making her way throughout this crazy fucking world with fantastic artwork and such an interesting story. Oh man, I love this book. His art is so weird. There's so many weird things about it. His style is so out there. Oh, I'm gonna put the episode art of this episode as a panel from this book. Please check this book out, guys, because I need to see more stuff from this guy. I hope this book has done well enough for them. From what I've heard, though, this book has gotten a lot of buzz. I just think he's so different from any other comic artist out these days, and everything is so highly rendered and detailed and weird looking, and the things he draws and the choices he makes is just amazing. And again, this is another book that's hard to describe. So let's just give you a little blurb on the back here. Little Bird, Book 1, The Flight for Elder's Hope. Little Bird was born into war, and it's the only life she's known. When her village is destroyed and her mother kidnapped by the oppressive American Empire, and like I said, she's in Canada. This takes place in Canada, and this. She fights to reignite the resistance that once was, and defeat the enemy to save her country, to save her people, to discover her own identity in a world on fire. It's the critically acclaimed sci-fi epic from, and then I gave you the information of the artist and writer. So good. Go out and buy this now, guys. I cannot stress that enough. It's probably one of the best things I've read that's come out this year. Mostly from the art. I mean, the story, is great, and it's a really cool tale to begin with. You know, things we've seen before, though, for sure. But the visuals are what makes this the most special thing about this book, and worth the price of admission alone. So definitely go out and pick this up, guys. I honestly, wow, so fucking good. All right, guys, so that'll be it for today. Just over half an hour for 7 books, not bad. So I'll be back next week, guys, and I can't promise I'm going to always read this many. Some weeks just go better than others. But, you know, if you know already, I try to read at least 3 books when I come and talk about it here on the show. And you can check us out once again every Saturday when we drop on the Late Night Chat Network. I also do a single issue new comic book review show with my girlfriend Christine called Weekly Wine Comic Time. And, of course, we got the Late Night Chat with JT and Niko, our flagship show on the Late Night Chat Network. Thanks, guys.